Okay, so in this video, I'm going to take you through some pretty basics of just how to bring in a base map, and then I'm going to bring in the dot density data as well and show you how to do some symbology. And then we're going to go and use what's called the layout view, or the layout. We'll use a layout manager to create a layout view. And that's how you change your map canvas, which is kind of the place you do your geovisualization, into a PDF or a JPEG or something that you can send in an email and share with people. There's lots of ways to do it. There's also ways you can publish on the web, but for today, we're just going to be figuring out how to make kind of slides that you could throw in a PowerPoint. So I'm just starting with a blank, pretty much blank. I've got my location of my incident here, but the first thing I want to do is create just a backdrop, a base map. So I told some of you this in our meetings, but you can go up and what you want to get is called the Open Layers plugin. What you want to get is called the what you want to get is called the Open Layers plugin. And if you don't have it installed already, you can go to your plugins and go to Manage and Install. And then you might have to, I think you might have to go to Settings and click all these boxes. We want to show all the available plugins. It's an older one or it's an experimental one. I can't remember. So click all those boxes. And then when you have them, go to All and type in Open Layers. And then you can, I have it installed, but you can say Install is what you want to do. And maybe I'll reinstall it. Why not? And this is great because it gives us access to some prefabricated maps. Normally, we would have to build our maps with individual pieces of data. So I've given you some of that under your infrastructure data. I've given you guys building footprints and center lines, so you could make roads and buildings on your own and symbolize them how you want. But I think it's kind of easier to just bring in a pre-made base map for our purposes. So we go to the web. We'll go to Open Layers plugin. The Google stuff doesn't work as well because Google, is kind of proprietary and they don't want to share as much. You can use it, but it's all watermarked. I think that if you want to use an aerial image, Bing has some stuff. This is kind of the Microsoft. There's also stuff under, the Stamen design puts out a few things. Apple Maps and OpenStreetMap. OpenStreetMap is kind of it's kind of like the Wikipedia of maps. It has lots of crowdsourced data, and it's pretty good, especially in developed places in the world. So I'm going to go to OpenStreetMap, and it pops in right there, and it's on top of my dot right now. Remember, these layers are not the actual data. They're just representations of the data, just like an iTunes playlist. I can't use that metaphor anymore. Just like any playlist on, whatever, the actual song or the actual layer is not there. It's just representing what order it comes in. So I'm going to put my location back on top so I can see it. And so this is where George Floyd was killed, in that spot. So for some more context, I think I want to show where the police districts are, because that's our study area, right? We only have data about police within the districts that they police. So I'm going to go to my browser panel, which the browser is kind of where my project home is. This is where the actual files are stored. And under data and base data, I'll find, maybe I kept it under crime data actually, because it is police district boundaries, so it's related to crime. And I've got Minneapolis police districts. I can double click it, or I can just click and drag it in like that. So I'm going to click and drag it in, and then it shows up, and it gives it this kind of default color and a default stroke. The stroke is the outside, kind of the line around the polygon. So that's great. I can see them, but I can't see anything underneath. So what I want to do is I want to take this polygon file, and I'd love to be able to see the boundaries but not the fill, so I can see the map below the fill. So to do that, I need to open up this layer. And so you can either double click or right click and go to Properties. On a Mac, it's Control click and go to Properties. So you go to Properties, and then we have all these options and toolbars. Today, we're mostly concerned with just the Symbology tab, which I think at this point you've seen before. So the Symbology tab is showing us that we're using a single symbol to represent each of these police districts. And we should know that each of these police districts relates to an attribute table, just keep that as a reminder that all geographies in polygons, they're shapes, in lines, they're polylines, and in points, they're points. Each geography represents a row in an attribute table. We're just concerned at the moment with this polygon file with it's okay. It can be a single symbol. We're just going to use one symbol for each polygon. And what we're going to do is go and we're going to get rid of the fill. So under single symbol, simple fill is the default and it just fills the polygon. So I'm going to click that and I get all these options about how to change the symbology. And I could change, maybe I want the stroke, the border to be thicker. So I could go here and it's in millimeters, I could bump it up to maybe 0.5 millimeters. And if I hit apply, what I'm going to see is it's going to change the symbology. So apply, boom, it makes it a little thicker. And you can change the color and everything like that. So I think what I'm going to do now is just take this is the fill style, and right now it's a solid color, which is green. And I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to say no brush. I don't want to see that. So I hit no brush, and I hit apply, and there we go. Now I can see the police districts without seeing the filled polygon, and they're making the map a little bit more legible. So that's good. So if this was all I wanted to show, I could go straight to the layout view, and maybe this is my first base map. So let's do that. Before we get to the dot density, I'm going to just pretend that this is my first context map, maybe, just so that in my paper or in my presentation I can talk about how the killing happened in the neighborhood of Powderhorn, south of Minneapolis, in a particular police district. So if I wanted to turn this into a map, I could just do a screenshot or something like that, but that wouldn't let me make a legend or label it in the way that I want to label it, or put a scale bar. So if I want to turn this into a map, what I'm going to do is go up to my project and go to New Print Layout, and I'm going to call this Context Map. I'm going to say OK. And it brings up a new window. And just remember that this layout window is part of the same file. It's all part of the same project file, right? So we've got our QGIS project file that we open on our computer. This layout view is stored in that, but it's a separate window because it's going to let me manipulate how I want the map to be shown. So the default is for this piece of paper to be a European system. I think it's like A4 or something like that. I want it to be 8.5 by 11 in case I want to print it out for my paper. And I probably want it to be portrait, right? I want the 8.5 by 11 to be kind of standing on edge so that I can see. So when I'm flipping through my report, it fills up a whole page maybe. So to do that, I can right-click or control-click the page and go to Page Properties. And then under Page Size, I'm going to choose Letter. And Letter is kind of the standard 8.5 by 11. So I choose Letter, and it changes the page a little bit. And instead of Landscape, I'm going to go to Portrait, because that's what I want to see. So I'm happy with that as my page, but now I need to add my map. And so this could get a little tricky because we're using the OpenStreetMap as a streamed service. So just get ready that it might look a little funky in a second. To add a map, I want to use this symbol, which kind of almost looks like nothing. It looks like just a page that's curling over. But I want to say Add Map. So I'm going to click Add Map, and I'm going to draw. I don't know if you can see these smart guides. You see how there's a dotted blue line that's telling me I'm indicating the top of the page. I go over and another one pops up for that corner, and I click and drag a box for my whole page. I'm filling up the whole page. You don't always need to do that, of course. You could fill up just part of the page, and if you filled up part of the page, then you'd have space to put other stuff, perhaps. So it showed up as blue, which is kind of confusing. You might think, why did this show up as blue? Like it should just mimic what I'm seeing. And I think the reason that is because it's a streamed service from online, meaning all of this OpenStreetMap is just from the web. It's just streaming it through our internet connection. And there's something about the coordinate system that kind of gets messed up. So don't worry about that. If you see blue, which you probably will, what I want you to do is go here, and we're going to try this. I hope it works. Set map extent to match main canvas extent. So I'm going to try that, and there it goes. I don't know if you saw, but it just snapped it back to what our canvas is showing. Now, this isn't great, I don't think. It looks like it's too big, and what we want to look at is kind of zoomed out a little too much. And what I have to be careful of is there's two ways to zoom when I'm in layout view. I can get closer to the actual page, or I can tell this kind of map data frame to zoom in and out. So to make sure I know what I want to do, the first thing I'm going to do is go zoom 1 to 1, and that'll bring it so that the scale of the map is going to, I'll just click it, I'll show what you mean. So now I'm looking at the page as it will appear, right? So this is going, showing me what the page will appear like at a 1 to 1 scale on my computer screen. So that looks a little bit better, but I'd still like to zoom in a little bit because you know, there's a lot of wasted space here. I'd like to get a little bit more detail. So you can use your mouse wheel or the trackpad to try to zoom, but it's a little clunky. So the other ways you can zoom are you can use this plus tool here, though that might just zoom into the page, I'm not sure. Or the way I like to do it is to adjust the scale. And you'll see the scale by, if you have your mouse tool, by clicking on the data frame. It shows up under item properties. And so the scale right now is some random number or figure based on our map canvas extent. And it's 133,000 right now, which means that 1 inch on this 8.5 by 11 page would equal 133,454 inches on the ground, right? So you don't necessarily need to know a ton about what the scale is. All you kind of need to know is that when this number goes up, it zooms out. And when this number goes down, it zooms in. So I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. So instead of 130,000, let's try 100,000. And it zooms in. That's actually kind of nice. That looks like a pretty good scale. I'm going to hit refresh to see if it refreshes the map. No, that's good. That's what it is. Cool. So I think that's pretty good. I could go in a little bit more. Maybe let's try 120,000. Oops, that's the wrong direction. Sorry. 90, 1, 2, 3. You'll have to just fuss with it to see what kind of scale you want to get. Maybe 80,000. That's not too bad. Okay. So I like that fit. I might want to scooch this up though. So if I want to move the map content inside of that, what I can do is go to my move item content, and I'm going to click and drag, and I can move the map around inside the page if I want. So I'm going to just scooch it a little bit like that. That's pretty good. Cool. So now that I think I have the map exactly how I want it, and I don't really want to change, I don't really think I want to change much about how the map is situated. I might put like a title in here and a legend and a scale bar, but I think I want this to just stay as it is. So what I can do is I can go to my items and lock it so that I don't accidentally scooch it or mess it up. So I'm going to hit lock like that, and now I can't click and drag or mess it up at all. So that's pretty good. Now let's say I want to add a label. You know, perhaps I want to label this dot the killing of George Floyd, or the George Floyd's murder site, or something to indicate what that red dot means. To do that, I would go over here and grab the add label, and then I could click anywhere that I want to add the label, and I click here, and it's giving me some default settings. I guess what I could do is I could click and drag, might be easier. That'll give me a box to write in. And I don't know if you see, but it gives us this lorem ipsum, which is kind of a standard for just dummy text. So instead of lorem ipsum, I'm going to, over here in the properties, write killing of George Floyd. And it doesn't show up very well, so I'm going to make the text bigger. And to make the text bigger, I believe I can go down, yep, position And size, that's what that is. Where is it? Font. There we go. Click the font, and then let's make it bold and 12 point. Say OK. There. That's bigger. That's a little better. It looks like the label's interrupting that a little bit. So maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll make it 2 lines like this so that it all shows up at once. And if I wanted to match red with red so that it calls out and it stands on top of the visual hierarchy, I could make it red as well, just to catch the viewer's attention. So there we go. So there's a label and a dot on a base map with police districts. Let's say I wanted to add a title now. One thing I might want to do is add, maybe some white space up here so I can put a title. And to do that, I could add a box here, add a shape. Maybe I add a rectangle. And this rectangle, I could just draw like this. And, maybe I'm fine with it like that. But you can obviously mess with the style and change it however you want. But for our purposes right now, I think that's okay. So then after I do that, maybe I'm going to add another text box. And this one is going to say Minneapolis Police Districts, like that. And maybe I go to the font here again, and I want to make this a 12-point bold so it sticks out. And then I can mess with it so that it looks a little cleaner and more centralized or something like that. So you can fuss with cartography forever and design, and it won't be done even after you've spent hours on it. So sometimes you have to just call something good enough. So I feel pretty good about this as a context map. We don't really need much more than just a label, a couple of labels, and a base map with our theme. Our theme in this one is police districts, right? If we wanted to add the name of the police districts, that's something we could do. I'll show you how to do that privately if you want to know how to do label attributes individually, because we can have the computer tell us where we want those, or we can tell the computer where we want those police district labels to go. I don't think it's necessary here. This is just to show the study area. So if I wanted to show the study area in a PowerPoint, how do I get from here to there? I think the easiest way to do that is to export as an image. And you can either click this icon here or go up to export as image under layout, and they'll both do the same thing. So I'm going to say export as image. It's okay, don't worry about that warning message. And then on the desktop, let's just call this Minneapolis police districts. And the format is a JPEG. That's good. JPEGs are small. I mean, they can still be attractive, but they're just like compressed, so you can send them in an email, which is good. So I want to just save that to the desktop. I hit save, and it's asking me what I want the resolution to be. The default should be 300, and that's dots per square inch, which means that this is kind of what they suggest for the human eye not being able to see a pixel. So if your computer has a problem exporting at 300, you can lower it to maybe 150 or 200, but you really don't want to go below 150. It won't look very good if you go below 150. You don't really need to go above 300 either. So the default of 300 should be fine. So I'm going to hit save, and it will take a couple minutes. And then it says it worked. I got this export layout with a little happy check mark. And then now I'm going to go, and here's my JPEG of my map. And I double click it and I can open it. And that looks pretty good, actually. I think that is sufficient. That would help me if I was talking to someone and I wanted to describe, where this happened. So I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to make another video that shows how to do some basic symbology so that you can kind of change the attributes of the data that you're showing here, and hopefully that will help you as you decide what you want to show on your map.